You're watching this video because money is the thing that keeps you with him. Not fear, not confusion. It's not your lack of strength. It's money. And yet you keep getting this message, right? Sometimes from other people, sometimes from up here, saying that staying for money sounds like some kind of excuse, right? Like if you were really, really ready, if you were serious, if you were really strong, then you just find a way around it. I really wish that money grew on trees, don't you? This is exactly where the problem starts because financial abuse isn't some side issue in abusive relationships. It's not the bonus feature. It's not something that only happens in extreme cases. Did you know that it is present in almost every single abusive relationship in some form? 99%, in fact. It gets talked around, not talked about. So let's be clear right from the start. This is about financial abuse. This is about money being used as control, restraint, leverage, and threat. This is about how women get trapped, not because they don't see the abuse. And listen here, there are plenty of women that due to conditioning don't see that it's abuse yet. That was me. But this is for the women that know that it's abuse. But because the resources needed to leave have been systematically limited, restricted, controlled, or weaponized against them, you don't know what to do. And I want you to notice how different that feels from the way that this topic usually gets framed. Because usually the focus shifts fast, right? Towards mindset, empowerment, bravery, hustle, or planning better next time. And I'm not doing that. None of that touches the actual problem when money is the gatekeeper. And if money is the gatekeeper for you, this conversation is going to line up with your reality instead of asking you to argue with it and just think positive thoughts. I'm Lisa Sonni. I've lived this, and I work with women every day who are in or recovering from abusive relationships, trying to understand why leaving feels impossible, even when they know exactly what's happening. I know what it's like to have $11 in your bank account when you want to leave. And I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here to tell you how to make money or manage your money or magically create resources that you don't have. What I'm here to do is tell you the truth about how abuse actually operates, especially when money is involved, because that truth is the missing thing for most women. And if you want more content that doesn't sugarcoat this stuff or hand you fake solutions, I suggest you hit subscribe because this channel is built for insight, not comfort. Now, money is rarely the only thing in an abusive relationship, but it is often the biggest thing. It's the thing that turns discomfort into feeling like you are being held captive. It's the thing that transforms knowing into being unable to actually act. And in the majority of abusive relationships, financial abuse is present, whether it's obvious or subtle. Sometimes it looks like full control over accounts and spending, like bringing home receipts from the store. Sometimes it looks like encouragement to stop working for the family, right? Don't worry, baby, I'll take care of you. But then it's followed by punishment for not contributing financially. Could be constant criticism of your spending, like saying that you're bankrupting the family with your Starbucks addiction, paired with total secrecy around his. But you suspect, or maybe you even know, that he's spending all your money on drugs or women or gambling. And sometimes it looks like promises, right? You'll be fine. You'll get half. I'll always take care of you, babe. Right up until the moment you actually try to leave, right? Then suddenly the rules change and you deserve nothing. And sometimes you don't even recognize it as financial abuse because technically you're the one in charge of the money, right? I've got plenty of clients who are in charge of the money and still being financially abused. The accounts are in your hands. Sure, you pay the bills in the sense that you make the clicks happen. You track what's coming in, what's going out. It's all you. From the outside, it looks like you have control. And he could say, how am I controlling? You have access to everything. But you're being yelled at if there's not enough money, even though you're being restricted from earning money. You're blamed for financial stress that you didn't create. He overspends. He makes unilateral decisions with your money. He withholds information. Somehow you are being held accountable for the outcome. That's not control. I'm telling you, he's scapegoating you. Being put in charge of the money while not being responsible for the spending is insane. How are you accountable for something that you're not responsible for? Makes no sense. That's a perfect setup for an abusive situation. This dynamic is going to keep you anxious, blaming yourself, and fixing a problem that you're not even allowed to solve. That's actually called a double bind. I don't want to get off topic, but just to name what that is. Now, this is where that I have historically hesitated to make videos like this, And I kind of want to be honest about that. Money is deeply personal, right? I can't magically get money in your hands. I wish I could. I really do. Everyone's situation is so different. Some women have jobs, full-time, part-time, some don't. Some have savings, some don't. Some have retirement accounts, credit cards, loans, family support. Some are dealing with child support, alimony, custody threats, immigration issues, medical needs. There's no single solution that fits everyone. And honestly, pretending there is just ends up hurting the women who can't make those solutions work. I'm not interested in telling you to have a garage sale or sell your stuff or babysit or start a side hustle or bootstrap your way out of an abusive relationship as if that's realistic or even humane. That's not education. That's just pressure. And honestly, it's judgment, but we're disguising it as advice because people love to do that, right? Here's what you need to do. And it's not helpful at all. So if you're wondering what the point of this video is, it's not to give you a step-by-step exit plan. It's actually to do something more foundational. I want to explain why money works so effectively as a control mechanism in abusive relationships, why your situation feels so stuck, even when you're aware, and why that stuckness is not your personal failure. Because until you understand that, every other conversation is just going to put more shame onto you, and you already feel like you're in an impossible situation. I honestly want to suggest that maybe you share this video with someone who just doesn't seem to understand. Maybe it'll help them understand your situation better. Financial abuse, it doesn't usually start with overt control. It starts with trust, with love, right? Shared goals and practical decisions that make sense at the time you're making them, right? I'm going to give you an example. Staying home with the kids, letting him handle the finances because he's better at it. My abuser, I laugh because my abuser had me convinced that I was bad with money. He convinced me to make everything joint and that he would be in charge of it all. It was positioned like he was taking a burden off my shoulders. And the truth is, I trusted him because at the time I literally had no reason not to. Women are putting things in his name for convenience. They're taking a break from work because your plate's already full and that feels like a great relief. These decisions don't happen in a vacuum, and they don't happen because women are naive. They happen inside relationships where cooperation is expected, it's encouraged. And the problem is that in an abusive dynamic, those sort of reasonable choices get converted into leverage, and you don't even see it. Domestic abuse experts talk about this all the time in the best books on the topic, how abusers use everyday structures, including money, maybe even especially money, to create dependence and obedience. But they're all doing this while they maintain this socially acceptable image. And once that leverage exists, it only gets reinforced. Access gets restricted. All the transparency is suddenly gone, right? Questions that you ask him are now going to be met with defensiveness or punishment for even asking. You're made to feel irresponsible, ungrateful, or incompetent if you ask for any insight into your finances. So over time, you probably just stop asking. You don't push anymore, right? You stop imagining alternatives because alternatives can feel kind of dangerous. Evan Stark's work on coercive control explains this really, really well. Abuse is not about isolated incidents, but actually about narrowing someone's world until their options shrink. Money is one of the fastest, most effective ways to narrow that world because it affects everything. Housing, safety, food, healthcare, legal protection, all at once. So you feel absolutely screwed when you don't have money. And this is where the cultural messaging gets so damn cruel, right? Women are told nonsense. Don't worry, if it ever ends, you'll get half, right? The courts will handle it. Just get a lawyer. He'll have to pay for your lawyer. And honestly, don't worry, he'll pay for your lawyer. You'll be protected. And honestly, you even hear this from men about women taking half, right? Men are constantly whining and going on about everything they lose in divorce, despite all the evidence that it's women who lose. But in practice, many abusive men take preemptive steps to make sure there is no half of nothing, right? They hide assets, they move money, they drain accounts, they quit jobs, they suddenly earn less on paper, they drag out legal processes knowing that you can't afford to keep fighting, they threaten custody battles they know are going to financially break you. This isn't rare. Are you kidding me? This shows up consistently in survivor accounts and abuse research. And yet, when women talk about it, they're told they're being pessimistic or dramatic. These men, abusive men, for clarity, right? We gotta be clear. Not all men. Men who are abusive think that women don't deserve anything. So even the man who told you, don't worry, I'll take care of you. If we ever got divorced, you'll get half. As soon as that actually happens, he's like, wait a minute, why should I have to give you half just because you stayed home, raised the kids, and allowed me to work? Make that make sense, right? They think you deserve it when they sign up for it because everyone knows when you go into a marriage, assets get split 50-50. They never think you'll divorce them. And they think that if you do divorce them, they can just hide the money. This is why I want to slow this down for a second, okay? Let's stop right here. This is where people say things that sound really reassuring and they're actually very dangerous, especially for people who are not married yet, but getting married. You're going to hear things like, don't worry, he'll owe you child support. Don't worry, you'll get alimony. Don't worry, you'll be fine once the paperwork is done. That's not how this plays out in real life, not for most women. And honestly, alimony is paid in a very small percentage of divorces, under 10%, and it's only in specific situations. Child support might be ordered, sure. You know what the biggest issue of child support is? No, not what the men think. Non-payment. That's one of the biggest problems in family court. There's over $1 billion in unpaid child support at any given time in the United States. And that tells you something very important. Being owed money and receiving money, they're not the same thing. Abusive men know that. That's why they quit jobs, hide income, work under the table, delay court, move money, or just drag things out until you are exhausted. Avoiding responsibility isn't a side effect of abuse, it's part of it. So telling women that they can just leave because support will magically show up isn't hope, it's misinformation and it's dangerous. So if you're listening to this and thinking, yes, this is exactly what's happening, I want you to pause. Just notice how different this feels from blaming yourself, because there's a huge difference between being afraid to leave and being unable to leave without catastrophic consequences. Staying because you can't leave yet is not the same thing as staying because you don't see the abuse. Those are two completely different realities, and they always get lumped in together, all these conversations, and they really lack the nuance that's needed when we're talking about this. So when that happens, I know that women end up feeling so ashamed for surviving the best way they can. Sometimes that means staying. Sometimes it means staying for now. Now, I advocate for figuring this out and leaving, but to pretend that you can just figure it out, it's kind of ridiculous, right? It makes women feel very stuck. So one of the most damaging things about how financial abuse is discussed is the assumption that awareness equals ability. Once you see it, you can act on it. Like you can just go get a job and that will somehow mean that you have all the resources to make this happen. But awareness without resources doesn't create freedom. It creates shame. So if you're awake and aware, but you feel like you're inside a cage, it can feel like prison. And that feels unbearable. You know, but you can't leave. So when people respond that by offering some kind of side hustle or, mompreneur or motivational slogans, I feel like that just increases the pressure. You think that you're failing at leaving or failing at being empowered, that you suck at surviving, and none of that is actually true. Leaving an abusive relationship is often a long process, right? It takes up to 7 times on average. It could be a long exit. Maybe for you, it looks like gathering information or meeting with lawyers or saving up for a lawyer, doing a ton of research online. Sometimes it looks like emotionally detaching before physically leaving. Sometimes it looks like staying longer than you want to, longer than is safe, because you know the cost of leaving right now is higher than the cost of staying. But nobody wants to talk about that, right? People will tell you to go to a shelter, like there's hundreds of thousands of beds available in every city across the country. And they accept children and they accept pets and you can stay there indefinitely. Preparing and making a plan, women are very good at that. We really are, especially when children or health are involved. But it still takes a plan. Now, there's also this sort of broader lie underneath of this that I love to name. Women were sold dependence as safety. Trust him, build a family, sacrifice your career for the greater good, for your children. And then when it goes wrong, women are blamed for not protecting themselves better, right? That contradiction benefits men. And I'll tell you, a lot of men use it. A lot of women use it on other women too. This whole contradiction benefits men and systems that rely on women's unpaid labor and their ability to endure all of this crap. None of this is an accident. And when you see this clearly, I hope that some of the self-blame that is on your shoulders starts to come off. Maybe not disappear, but just kind of get a little better, right? Do you notice how often the question gets turned back on you? Why didn't you plan better? Why didn't you save? Why didn't you see this coming? I would never, right? That framing assumes equal power from the start, which just is not how abusive relationships operate. Power always shifts kind of gradually, right? Control increases slowly. Dependence is very quiet. And by the time you realize what's happening, you see that it's abuse, your options are already limited. And that's the mechanism working how it's supposed to work. That's what they want. So instead of asking yourself, what's wrong with me? Why can't I leave? I want you to ask yourself a completely different question. What was taken from me over time that made leaving this hard? I want everyone to ask this question. What did he do to make it so hard for her to leave? Because a woman that wants to leave her husband should be entirely free to do so. And yeah, the reverse is the same. Everyone should be fully allowed and capable of leaving at any time. Marriage is a contract. It's not a lifelong contract that says there's no exceptions to leave. You take your vows somewhere else. Marriage is not about abuse and control. That's not in the vows anywhere. Okay, so as we sort of come towards the end of this video, I want to just go back to something that's been here the entire time. Confusion keeps women stuck longer than fear does. Confusion about whether or not it's really abuse, confusion about whether or not you can afford to survive without him, about whether or not your reasons are valid. It all makes sense. Financial abuse thrives in the same confusion that we're talking about because it's so easy to dismiss and normalize. And once you see it clearly, even if you can't act on it yet, which is valid and fair, the ground under your feet is going to be more solid for you. You're not imagining any of this. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're looking for support beyond videos, there's ways to work with me that meet you exactly where you are. Private sessions, group programs, and my community, She Rises Collective, which is an affordable monthly membership to access 24/7 support. They're built for women at all different stages, including those that are still stuck and just trying to understand what's going on. You don't need to know your next move right this second. You don't have to solve everything at once. What matters is that you stop turning this sort of structural trap into your personal failure. Hit subscribe and I'll catch you in the next video.